Welcome to the Athlete Insights Podcast, hosted by Yash Pad Day, a podcast focused on letting athletes tell their journeys in their sport.
Welcome into another episode of the Athlete Insights Podcast. Today I've got my guest, Jordan Menard. She's the assistant director of social media for the Big Ten Conference. So, Jordan, appreciate you taking the time out of your summer. I know it's summer break and enjoying your summer and spend some time with me talking about your kind of journey and your story in sports and kind of how you got to the level that you're at. So I appreciate you taking the time and spend some time with me.
Yeah, super happy to be here. Our offices are closed for this week to give some people a little bit of a break. So
There you
it
go.
worked out at a perfect time.
There we go. Yeah. Well, happy 4th of July as well to you as
Yeah, thanks.
we jump into it. But with my podcast, I always like to start from the beginning, kind of go from the top here. So can you talk about the first moment that you really got introduced to sport,
Oh, yeah.
kind of that beginning portion of your youth time in sport?
Yeah. So, if you've ever seen the movie Remember the Titans, my childhood was very similar to Coach Yost's daughter.
Okay.
I grew up on the sidelines of a football field. My entire family is football coaches, baseball coaches, basketball, and literally any sport you can name of in my tiny little town. That is what I was growing up around.
Gotcha.
So going into sport for me kind of felt like a duh. It was like, I don't know what other route I could go. Because that was just what I've been around my entire life. And of course I played sports through high school and stuff, but when I got to Central Michigan, I pretty much marched into the athletic department to their director of communications and asked him to give me a job. So,
Oh,
yeah,
that's we're both, and I think I saw you're a sport management journalism mass communication major as a
yep,
sport journalism major, so it kind of all connects it, and it's awesome to see kind of how the influence of your family. It's always interesting to see from a youth perspective how people get into sport because it's the influence of family or friends or things like that. It's awesome to see kind of the influence of your family
oh
being
yeah,
coaches all around. Uh,
yeah,
growing up in that atmosphere must have been awesome. And can you talk about what youth sports you did play? You said there was a plethora of sports that your family was involved with, but kind of what
yeah.
sports did you specifically play and get
Um,
involved with as a youth, as a
my
young?
my sport was volleyball. I played
Okay.
volleyball for my whole life. Love it, miss it dearly.
Hmm.
Play beach sometimes, but it's not what it was. And then I ran track and did powerlifting and
Oh.
saw a little bit of softball as well.
That's awesome. Wide
Yeah,
wide variety of sports that
definitely.
you could partake in. And as you got into high school, can you talk about your high school experience around sport? You said you walked into Central Michigan and got into their
Yeah,
athletics communications. The reason I asked that is because in my high school I had a broadcast journalism program that I
yep.
worked with, and then helped me transition into athletic communications when I went into my undergrad. So that's kind of what that question goes. Is in high school, did you have any experience with all that stuff or?
We didn't have that kind of like programs available to us, but like it's very small town USA, so like sports are kind
Yeah.
of the center of things.
Yeah.
I was a team captain for all of my time, and just really, I think being around so many fellow athletes and a lot of our, a lot grew up around a lot of elite athletes, and in a small town like Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, there's nothing else
Hmm.
more important than,
Yeah.
rooting for your teams. And we also had Lake Superior State around. So there wasn't necessarily like a option to like work in sports aside from like maybe handing out tickets. But
Gotcha.
for the most part, it was really just supporting and showing up and, learning that team pride at a young age for sure.
Hmm. And as we kind of transition into the collegiate side of things now, yeah, like I said before, off game we were talking, we're both MAC.
Yep.
We're both from the MAC, right? From Ball State. You went to Central Michigan. Were there other schools you were looking at? Was Central Michigan kind of your target there, or kind of what led you to go to Central Michigan?
Um, my dad actually went to Michigan State. So
Okay.
I always say like I'll wear maroon And now, I live close to Wisconsin, so I'll wear red, but like I bleed green at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
Uh-huh.
My dad played ball there, and so we're a Michigan State household through and through. But
Mm.
my uncle went to Central Michigan,
Oh,
and
okay.
that was like a huge influence in, you know, me going to Central. But they ultimately, like, just being transparent, like they gave me the
Yeah.
most money. So
Oh,
that
yeah,
was a
no.
huge thing
I
for me.
I have no shame in saying that same thing at Ball State.
Yeah.
They gave me the most scholarship money, so it's like
Right.
whichever has the better deal, that's where we're gonna go. So, but what are some things, if you can talk about, what are some things, some takeaways from your time at Central Michigan? What are some things that you learned that you continue to, I mean, you're using on a daily basis at the Big Ten, and kind of what are some takeaways that you have, some lessons that you learned during your time at Central Michigan?
Well, at Central, I mean, like, not only did I have like a great amount of like people around me, like we have a great program there, and a lot of our, people that are in sports management there end up being relatively like wildly successful
Yeah.
when it comes to the sport world. But
Yep.
for me, the athletic department there really did take a chance on me. I didn't
Gotcha.
have any experience, and I would say like John and Andy, like they gave me every freedom when it came to freedom and confidence, when it came to writing, when it came to social, when it came to
Hmm.
doing all those things. Like, yes, you can go on the sidelines and all that, and like they didn't have to let me do that, but
Oh,
by
gotcha.
them giving me that early opportunities and like teaching me everything, whether it be live stats to writing
Hmm.
articles to, social, that eventually led me to my path where, I did everything in college. I ended up going to New York for a little
Yep.
bit, working for the Mets in sales.
Yep.
Missed the communication side of the thing. When I got back, I kind of knew that that was where I wanted to be,
For sure.
and did that, and then got really lucky to get the graduate assistantship that I did at the University of Indianapolis.
Yep.
And that was, Cody and Ryan, like they just gave me the reins there. And
Hmm.
that was one of the more huge learning experiences that I had. Was just like seeing how much, because I had worked at a D1 level, but
For
seeing how
sure.
much went into it at the D2 level, which is like everything, right? Like
Oh yeah.
you are running around like crazy. Um,
You're
that
doing the
taught
live
me like,
stats, you're doing the
yeah,
writing, you're doing
every
everything.
part of it you're doing. And that
Yeah.
taught me the grit that I needed to work in this
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah.
Um, and ultimately, like without them, I never would have got my first like small internship at the NCAA, which eventually like ended up getting me an in to get my full-time job there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so many people along the way in my college really paved the path for me and
For
brought me to
sure.
success in my professional career.
For sure. And Central Michigan, like you said, has a really strong reputation with their sport management program. As I've known several people, several friends of mine that have gone through and doing
Yes,
really well now.
fantastic. I mean, what Steve
Yeah.
Adler's doing there,
Yeah.
he's one of like a professor that I hold very close to my heart. The people that program has in it that are teaching the next generation is just top tier. I would
For
recommend
sure.
it to anyone.
For sure, for sure. And now, as you said, you had a variety of different stops. You worked with the Mets for a couple months as a sales intern. You was a graduate assistant with UI in University of Indianapolis. Um, went to the NCAA, went from an internship to a full-time job. Now you're at the Big Ten running their social. Can you talk about what a day in the life right now is as a Big Ten, as an employee for the Big Ten, running their social media and their digital content? What's kind of a day in the life, or day in the,
Yeah.
what it was your day to
Um,
day look like?
Yeah, our what's really awesome is that our day to day is always different. And we have such
Yeah.
a wonderful team around us, like both on the digital and social time with like Tim, Maeve, and Steph, but
Yeah.
also like just the Big Ten in general has such a
Uh-huh.
good staff. I mean,
Yeah.
I've never been a part of a staff that supports each other so well and respects each other's work life balance and like just wants to show up for each other and help each other.
For
I
sure.
do think that that's like the culture that we try to breed at the Big Ten in general, and that goes like huge shout out to like Satvik on our on our people team, and
Yeah,
he just keeps it brings in such great people. Our culture there is just phenomenal.
for sure.
Um, and then so like what that has been able to do for me coming from the NCAA, which was an incredible, fantastic staff there. I owe them the ability to run social, I think comes from them.
Yeah,
But the Big Ten, I mean, every single day is a little different, but
yeah,
really it's manning the feeds every day, seeing what's upcoming, seeing
yeah.
what sort of events we have, managing our production company that we work with.
100%.
And a couple different partnerships, but really just making sure that schools have everything they need and then prepping for upcoming events. So like our big events are,
Uh,
any sort of Big Ten championship.
yep.
We have Big Ten Network who really handles more of like the day-to-day like sport coverage on like during
Gotcha.
regular season.
Yeah.
We handle more of like the postseason things, but of course like we we have a fantastic digital host that we
Mm,
brought in that has been able to, showcase more of our regular season highlights on our side in a different, unique way. But
that's
I would
awesome.
say my job has just been really to bring in a new perspective. And that's been, I think, very successful.
Well, and it's always great, and your day to day looks different. If your day to day is just the same mundane same thing, it gets kind of boring. So it's always nice to have a different sense of a day to day activities of what you're doing. And you said you went to from the D1 level to the D2 level, saw the different changes occur. What's the biggest change that you've seen going from working with a school specific like University of Indianapolis or Central Michigan to a
Yeah.
conference office like a Big Ten?
Well, I
What's
mean, I would say like the biggest shift that I had in my time was going from UND to the NCAA.
for sure? Okay,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
because at the NCAA, I was covering, like up at one point, like 12 different sports, and I was
yeah. Oh
covering every
wow.
team in the nation, every Division
Uh,
One team in the nation while also planning for a championship.
yeah,
So, that was a big difference because, like, when I'm at UIndy, yes, I'm covering every sport,
but you're
but
only covering you Indy.
yes,
Yeah,
and different people have different leads, right? Like at the time,
yeah,
I had women's basketball, women's soccer, and like softball, but
yeah.
like you cover those sports
Hmm.
pretty heavily and you try to be at all the other major events, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot more probably that you're going to be at on a day to day.
Hmm.
But I mean, there was a time when I went to the NCAA where I was at like, I think 38 different soccer programs in the course of 3 months. So, I mean, that was
Traveling
like
a lot.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was also just like, you might you have one 8 o'clock game that you go to on a Thursday for
Oh,
a
yeah.
school, but I had 12 8 o'clock games and then a 10 o'clock and then a bunch of Pacific Coast games that started at, midnight. So
Oh,
we were
yeah.
covering a lot different. It was a big shock at first and a big adjustment, but then once you got the hang of it and then going from the NCAA where I had every school to the Big Ten where I have 18 is again like
It's
a
a
whole
breeze.
yeah,
It
it's a
seems like a
very
breeze now.
right. It's a little bit easier.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. Going from 138
Yeah, about
program
that.
Division 1 programs to 18 is probably an easier shift
Yeah,
in
and
that
you can,
sense.
you're less likely to miss something.
Yeah.
Less likely to misspell a player's name.
Yeah. I used to PA announce when I was at Northern Colorado, and we for their soccer team, and I think
Yeah.
I mispronounced a opposing team goalie's name or something, and their mom had like called up the office
Yep.
and was like, "No, this wasn't it. This is it
Right.
can
If
cause a real ruckus if you
yes.
mispronounce a name."
99 people might not care, might not notice, but the one person that does is usually pretty upset.
Oh, 100%, 100%. So, but before we end the podcast, before we go, I just wanted
Yeah.
to always throw this question out there if you think about your journey, think about how far you've come from when you were, young girl to now, if you were talking or speaking to young girls who want to work in sport, want to get into sport, what's the
Yeah.
message? What's one message you'd spend to young girls who want to get into sport, want to get to that level at the NCAA or Big Ten or a
Yeah.
big sports job like you have? What would you say?
Be coachable.
Hmm.
Always be coachable, but always remember that you deserve to be the coach as well.
Ooh,
You know,
okay. I like that. I like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
always remember that you do have a seat at the table and to be firm on stances. And
Hmm.
if there's a hill that you feel like I'm not I know in my core that this is the right decision, like stand firm on your ground. You
For
know,
sure.
I think that while always being open and hearing different people's opinions, like especially when it comes to new minds, like like
Mm,
I am 27 and I can totally recognize that a 22-year-old is going to be a lot smarter and more on top of like TikTok than I will be.
for sure.
Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, like, you just be open, be coachable, and be nice and have empathy.
For
Everybody's just
sure.
trying to get through it.
For sure. No, 100%. I like that, right? Being coachable and understanding that you have a voice, understanding that you have that
Yeah,
seat at the table, like you said, is awesome. So, but
definitely.
that's all the time we have for this episode of the Athlete Insights podcast. Again, I want to thank Jordan for coming on and
Yeah,
spending time. And I'll have your social media, your Twitter and your Instagram all linked in the YouTube
awesome.
stuff, YouTube video, all that stuff, so you can follow Jordan and her journey at the Big Ten, and then you can follow my podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, pretty much anywhere you get a podcast, you'll find this one. So, Jordan, appreciate you taking the time and